Hi all and welcome to a new video. Today we're going to be going over what is the cheapest skirmish wargame on the market right now. In my recent obsession with wargames and skirmish games, I have decided to make a list of everyone I have heard of, or in my comments have mentioned in my other videos, and rank via price. However, price doesn't mean the cheapest is best. A lot of these games that I think are the best are in the middle line here, and that's fine. This video is meant for the new people to wargames who want something cheap to see what they're missing out on, what they want to get into. And skirmish wargames are the best place to do that. They're always going to be cheaper than a more traditional wargame, unless you go in a very small scale, which is not appealing to first starters, I have found. Hopefully this introduces you to a new game system and gets you looking at them. Or you just want to hear the system you love the most be mentioned. Either way, let's jump right on into the video. Starting with the rules of this video. Bundles will be taken into account, especially ones geared towards starter players. If a game has a starter set, individual team prices will be mentioned. 3D printing will not be considered. Terrain will be considered, and if they sell terrain for that game, no other price of terrain will be considered. In essence, if Mantic sells terrain for Deadzone, and the box doesn't come with terrain, spoilers it does, I would have to consider the price of that terrain before looking for a third-party one. We are assuming you are starting from nothing here, and I want to be fair. The final cost considering for ranking will be 2 player teams plus terrain, or a starter set plus terrain if it does not include terrain. This is to be fair for all skirmish wargames. I am going to take the benefit of the doubt and assume that you do not have any terrain stockpiled or have access to any of it. Now I will say, you don't need terrain to play the game, but if you're going to get into a skirmish wargame, 9 times out of 10, you are going to want the terrain so it feels better. Hopefully the arbitrary rules I have set for this video make sense. Starting at number 19, we have Conquest First Blood, a mode that exists pretty much to let you play without having to buy a full army, but it does have a surprising amount of love put into it. It lets you get into a fun and free rule set while painting your army. Definitely worth a try if you want to get into Conquest Last Argument of Kings, but I don't believe it is worth it on its own. As much as I love Conquest, and I love models and all the parts of it, this is a little overpriced for me to say it is worth it as a skirmish wargame. The starter set, at the time of this video, can be found for $100 on sale. However, the retail is $180. It does not come with any terrain, and the terrain Conquest sells is STL terrain, so that is another at least $80 to get everything you would need for them. So we are talking a final cost of $260, which is the most expensive skirmish wargames, but in my other what is the cheapest wargame video, that wasn't even like halfway down the list, so we're already at a really good start here. If this is the most expensive skirmish wargame, then skirmish wargames are going to drain your wallet a lot less than others. Next up on number 18 is BLKout. I'm assuming it's pronounced BLKout and not BLKout. I refuse to call it BLKout, so it is now BLKout. BLKout is an interesting tactical shooter with free roles that I feel like looks a lot like Titanfall, as you can see by the image on the right. First impressions are key, and this is a game that feels tactical and fun, with a fairly well-built reaction system that gives me Combat Zone vibes, which is one of my favorite skirmish wargames. This is a smaller wargame, and the starter set is reasonably priced at 120 USD. It includes everything but terrain, which is 125 USD. And I should specify, a smaller wargame company. This is a small company that really only makes this, and kudos. I appreciate these smaller people, and this game definitely has my attention, and is a little bit higher on my buy list. For what you get, I think this is more than fair. I highly recommend reading through the rules on their website as well, and the final would be $245. However, you can buy other terrain than theirs, even though their terrain looks really cool, for much cheaper, bringing it well below $200, especially for the scale they're working in. Next up is number 17, the first Games Workshop game on this list, Warcry. A very fun and interesting Games Workshop game, Warcry is an Age of Sigmar skirmish game, and a bit more pricey as well. It is a fun and interesting melee-focused skirmish wargame, and it has been made semi-dependent of Age of Sigmar in recent, as some models do not work in both games anymore. The big selling point of Warcry is a fun melee system that is enjoyable to play, and will have near constant support because it is one of their mainline games. These starter sets can be found for around $230 US and include everything needed to play. The individual factions usually cost about $60, so the final go-in price would be $230 USD. And if you already have some of the Warcry teams for your army, as if like they're one of the meta things to use, then you are already halfway there and you would just need to grab some already existent terrain. But as a new player, it is not ridiculously prohibitively expensive. Number 16 is Kill Team. Kill Team is a game that is often ignored, I have found, or seen as 40k light in many groups I have been in or went to. Many spout it as an introduction to 40k when that's what it used to be. It is now so much more than that. My local group doesn't play it, but I got my friends into it and still play it occasionally. It is very well supported, and that is a big selling point. They have been putting so much effort into Kill Team that it's going to have a long life. And it has a lot of amazing kill teams to choose from that all look so good it's not even funny. The starter set can be found online for $85 USD, and independent kill teams cost about $60 USD. The starter set comes with barely enough terrain, and GW terrain sets for kill team can be found for about $110 USD. So the final for this would be $195 USD. Because I do not believe you could play more than 1 or 2 games with the amount of terrain in that starter set and still have fun. Up at number 15 is Malifaux. Malifaux is a gothic horror Victorian steampunk skirmish game. It has amazing aesthetics and uses a deck of cards to play, which I am a sucker for any game that has decks of cards for use. Also, Victorian aesthetics pretty cool too. It has a lot of miniatures and support, currently over 60 masters and related crews from what I was reading on some of their releases. So that's a lot of minis. There is no starter set, and the core boxes are $50 each. They come with enough minis to play 1 team, so 2 people buying in would be $100 USD. Battle systems terrain is recommended for Malifaux as they do not make their own. The one I found that seemed like it would work the best would be 90 USD. So the final to get into this would be 190 USD for 2 people's teams and the terrain. Now, this is one of the cases of quality does not necessarily meet price. This is number 15 on a price list. It would probably be in the top 5 or 6 in a best rules system list. And I will highlight the games that I think would be higher up as we go along as well. Not to say that the others are bad, but some games shine through, and Malifaux is one of them. At number 14 is Necromunda. Necromunda is a classic, and that is its biggest draw. You can usually find people willing to play it anywhere 40k players are. Necromunda is a crunchy, detail-heavy, fully narrative game that can be a ton of fun with the right group. It is kind of expensive to start, but not as much as others, as it's at 14, which honestly surprised me, at $185 for their starter sets. $200 retail. But to get everything out of your Necromunda team, it gets a lot more expensive, as you need even more GW kits for vehicles, but to be fair, the $185 does come with enough things to start. The individual gangs are $50 USD, but the vehicles and extra units can get as high as $70. So if you want a fully kitted out gang, you're probably looking at spending an additional $150-ish on top of the $185, even if you split it with a friend, especially if you don't like one of the starter gangs, which is where a lot of the price comes in. But following the rules of this video as I said it, the final price to get into Necromunda is $185 USD. At number 13, we have Bushido Risen Sun. A fun samurai-themed war game, Bushido is a fun game that is an odd, as it's got different levels of support. It is a complex game that allows, in essence, tests for abilities. This allows for a balance between more and less experienced characters by manipulating the dice pools of the tests. Experienced samurai might have a dice pool of 3 or 4, and an experienced peasant would only have 1 for melee, for instance. There is no official terrain, so expect to spend about $80 for a full board. The starter set is 90 USD and comes with everything but terrain. Most faction sets are closer to 50 USD. So the final total would be roughly $170 if you get the starter set and enough terrain to fill up a board, which is only a 2-foot by 2-foot section, so it's not as bad as it sounds. Now, it's on in its levels of support as it is a ridiculously complex game, but for some reason they don't do official terrain, and it confuses me, because They seem like a mildly successful company with a good niche, but I don't know. It surprises me which of these companies have provided terrain and which haven't. And this is one that genuinely shocks me, especially since it can be sometimes hard to get access to good samurai themed terrain. At number 12, we have MoonStone. MoonStone is an amazing fantasy skirmish game for 2 to 4 players. MoonStone, at its core, is a bluffing game. You draw cards from arcane and melee decks and use them to outplay and outmind game the opponent before dice rolls are made. Now, it is still a dice game because dice rolls are important, but first it's a game of bluffing and figuring out the difference between the cards you have, your opponent has, etc. The 2-player starter set is 105 USD, and the terrain is another 56. Individual kits are $30 to $50 and come with 1 to 4 minis, so the final would be $161. MoonStone is one of those really cool games that I have recently discovered that is going on another very, very long list of things I really want to try. This is where we're getting into the dollar bits, because now we're at number 11, Marvel Crisis Protocol. Marvel Crisis Protocol is an interesting game. It has a stronger local scene than Shatterpoint, and plays similarly in its hero squad-based structure. It has beautiful minis, and I know more people that collect the minis than actually play the game. The starter set is 80 USD, and terrain packs are 40 USD, and you would need at least 2 for a decent enough bit of terrain to play. Although in reality you need to spend a lot more, but to get started you can probably do with less. Individual expansions are $60 as well. If you like Marvel and Wargames, this is a no-brainer. If you want to try a larger scale skirmish wargame with an interesting flow, this is also a no-brainer, as the minis are in a larger scale than the 28mm. The final to get into this would be $160 to get everything you would need to play a game fast. At number 10, we have Frostgrave. Frostgrave is a game of wizards battling through a ruined frozen city. If you want a deep yet fun spell-slinging wargame, this is a go-to in any situation. It has 10 different in-depth spell lores to mess around with. The miniature and terrain both look amazing. And this is another game that you only hear good things about on the internet, so you know it's amazing. Double amazing, if anything. The starter set is 70 USD, and official terrain is another 70 USD. So $140 altogether to become a wizard going through a frozen city and slinging spells at other wizards. At number 9, we have Relicblade. Relicblade is a tabletop RPG wargame, and is made by one guy, Sean Sutter. A shout out to anyone making a game on their own, and boy does Sean do things right. Relicblade focuses on making a character-driven system that can play in 30 minutes, which is quite the feat, and he did it. It works. Technically, Relicblade is the cheapest game on this list. With a free demo and some paper standees for about $3, you can get started. However, to be serious, faction sets are $45 apiece, the official starter is $65, and the official terrain for a whole board would be about $70. $73 if you go technically, but it also depends on shipping and other matters. I will happily recommend the quick start rules. They are a ton of fun, and the final price, if you like the quick start rules, is $138 to get everything you would need to start playing this game now. Next up at number 8 is Infinity. Infinity is a sci-fi skirmish wargame that has a small but cult following. Someone you know has probably heard of it and has an opinion on it. It is also the thing that was probably mentioned most in my comments on my other videos. Infinity uses an order-based system and allows for an interesting flow, as you can stack orders on single minis. However, minis can react as well, bringing a balance to this system, so that way you can't just send your best mini into the fold and expect it to do perfect. The starter set is 136 USD, and comes with everything you would need to play, and a full team costs about $100 on its own. I believe that's what an action team is, that as far as I could tell, making Operation Blackwind an amazing value, which is their starter set for $136. So the final price on this, 136 USD. Everything you need to play now. At number 7 is Star Wars Shatterpoint. A Crisis Protocol-like, Shatterpoint has an in-depth rule set with combos that are very impressive. A single team is 2 squads, so it would be $80 USD for one side. The game has a rocky launch, and going by the internet and other content creators, it did not get many local groups, despite having a really solid rule system. The core set is 130 USD, which is a very deep discount for what you get. Technically, the minis alone are around $160. not counting the terrain and everything else that comes with it. And, it includes everything you need to play, as per my rules. So the final for this would be 130 USD to get into Star Wars Shatterpoint, which is something you might want to do. Coming up to number 6 is Mantic Deadzone. Deadzone is a very fun game, and while many skirmish war games play the way it does, it is the one that reminds me the most of XCOM, and that is the best praise I can give it. Deadzone feels like playing XCOM online against a friend, but in real life and with a very well-balanced game. The starter set is just $120 USD and includes everything you need to play. The individual teams are $43 USD, so even if you get the starter set, you can expand very easily and very cheaply. They also have a Halo skirmish war game that's coming out soon, following a very similar rule set, but I feel kind of iffy on it because I didn't want a skirmish war game, I wanted a full war game with the Halo universe. But that's just me being me. At number 5, and one of my personal favorites on this list, something I would consider one of the better skirmish war games I have ever played, is Combat Zone. A Cyberpunk-themed skirmish game, Combat Zone has a fantastically simple rule set I have fell in love with. This is my current go-to, and I have sold many non-wargamers on it already. It is 120 USD for the starter set, and that includes everything. Terrain, tokens, and 2 full gangs. Everything you need to play the game now. Individual gangs are only 50 USD, and there are some other expansions that are about 20 to 25. If you are even mildly interested in a semi-Necromunda-like that plays faster and is more fun in my opinion, try this. It is also significantly cheaper in the long run than Necromunda. Final would be $120 to get started on it. This is an amazing game. Number 4, Bloodred Skies. Bloodred Skies is a World War II airplane skirmish war game. There are not many solid aerial combat games, so when a good one comes along, it is well worth shouting out. If you have a craving for tiny planes and chaos, Bloodred Skies is for you. The starter set is $100, and it includes everything you need to play the game. The squadrons for upgrades for that range from 30 to 50 USD. Terrain is not needed due to the aerial nature of the game. You're not going to run into trees in the air. So the final you need for this is $100. This is a fun, dogfight-based game where skills are really important. I wish I could have included X-Wing on this list, but I will get into why in my honorable mentions it is not there. At number 3 is a weird one, Fallout Wasteland Warfare. I kind of feel like this one is cheating. Fallout Wasteland Warfare is one of 2 Fallout war games. The main draw of this game is the versatility. You have a PvP, PvE, semi-RPG game in a box, so you can get your money's worth with a lot of different ways to play. The starter set is 80 USD and comes with everything needed. Expansions appear to middle around the $50 to $60 range, so I'm just going to say 55 USD to be safe. So the final you need to get into this is $80 for 2 players. Now, there is a different Fallout game coming out that I believe more fits skirmish war game, but for now, this is the best one that we have access to. At number 2, we have BattleTech, a classic war game that has lasted decades with a few lulls, but always comes back. BattleTech is an amazing rule system that allows you to do anything you want, and I love it so much. And by anything I want, I always go to the same example that I've said in other videos. Any system that has a rule for shooting off an opponent's mech's arm, and then picking it up and beating that mech in the face with it, is a good wargame in my book. You also get rules for planes, artillery, tanks, infantry, along with the mechs of course, and the starter set is only 50 USD. Some may argue that this is a true wargame, however it also fits all of the skirmish wargame criteria, so I am shouting it out and slapping it in the number 2 spot as a nice little well-deserved win for BattleTech. It can take all the wins it can get pretty much. The first of my honorable mentions is Xenos Rampant. Xenos Rampant is a miniatures agnostic game, making it work well with any existing collection or scales. It is very hard to nail down a price, so the rulebook is 30 USD and comes highly recommended. If you want to try out a more skirmish-based wargame and have some fun, look at any of the Rampant series, although I'm just specifically shouting out Xenos Rampant here. It is a nice, cheap, easy way to get into them without having to worry about anything. And my other honorable mentions. I am putting the games here that are technically not out, or are dead. Star Wars Legion Special Operations. It is in playtesting, it's not out. I don't feel comfortable mentioning it as a possible sell for this models. It's a good rule set, but it's not done. Turnip 28. Free rolls are available. But the official release of models has not happened yet via the Kickstarter, so I am putting it on pause here. You can playtest it right now. Technically, it is official rules, but until the models and the actual things in the Kickstarter come out, I do not personally consider it a game that is out yet, in my opinion. Fallout Factions. The starter set for that is coming out soon, or possibly has come out, but I can't find it in stock anywhere, so I'm saying coming out soon. It looks like a lot of fun. And Star Wars X-Wing. During the making of this video, it appears that Star Wars X-Wing was killed off unceremoniously. There is a lot of internet chatter about how a lot of its listings are being removed off of the website. There is no news of any new additions. I'm seeing it less and less in stock in local game stores. So unless I am horribly wrong, and I'll get X-Wing fans mad in the comments at me, I believe X-Wing is on its last legs. And like Armada, we'll be joining the horribly fumbled Star Wars games that could have been way, 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 way better if they had gotten more support, instead of just being shunted off to the side and abandoned. But now that the sad part's out of the way, let's get into number 1. Number 1 is Gaslands Refueled. Do you like racing, Hot Wheels, and Mad Max? And then this game's for you. Gaslands is an amazing and simple game. The cost to entry is a $20 book, and a few Hot Wheels, $10 is a little bit high, honestly. It is a kit basher's paradise, as you soup up your cars to look great. Terrain can be anything from cardboard boxes to paper towel rolls. It is encouraged in the book to start simple. Just play with what you have. I have played one round, and we had a ton of fun with it. If you want a racing-based skirmish wargame, go for it. The final, on the high-end price for it is $30 USD. And that is on the higher end of it. If you buy like a crap ton of Hot Wheels, that is how much it will cost you. This game is fantastic. It is cheap. It will get your muscles turning like no other, because you have to make the cars look kind of Mad Maxy if you want, which means like some nice simple dry brushing, a couple little parts from your other war games. It's a lot of fun. And it is very beginner friendly, because all you need is that one Hot Wheels that your dad got you because he thinks you're still into them, that you kept in your closet for years. Or I don't know, that just might be me. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Unlike in my video about traditional war games, a lot of skirmish games have the same cost of entry with a few exceptions, which is why I tried to highlight the strengths of each one as I went through. I know I mentioned I have a personal top 5 here, and the personal top 5 is very easy. It is going to be BattleTech, Deadzone, Frostgrave, Combat Zone, and Malifaux. However, Relicblade is really close there and could go in at any time. Same with MoonStone. Half the other lists on this list. All of them are really, really good games. And hopefully you found a new game to play in all of these different ones I've presented to you. Leave comments on any games I may have missed as well, because I don't know every single one. I did my best. I did a lot of research for this video. Well, I'll see you all next week. Have a wonderful weekend all, and leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. See you later.